Okay, so we've all been there. We've all had that moment when we're on our way to a job interview. We're going to a big business meeting. Could be a meeting in our day-to-day job at work, or it could be potentially with a new client, a new business partnership, and certainly, again, those job interviews. When we're on our way, our heart's pattering a little bit, the anxiety is high, the sweaty palms are coming, and we're like, what do we do? How am I going to make this a successful interview or meeting? Very natural. That's the way we're wired, to wonder and worry a little bit about this. But I'm sitting here today with David Newkirk, the founder, owner of Ethos Consulting, strategy consultant. He's amazing at what he does. You're going to get some great wisdom. David and I, we spent some time this afternoon talking about our businesses, our careers, and we got into a conversation on how we can all get better, not just David and I, but how all of us can get better at conveying our value, bringing us a level of, hey, we're a problem solver, we're a difference maker, we're a linchpin. If you work with us, if you hire us, there's going to be something better in it for you, for your company, for your business. And we just wanted to share some suggestions, tips, and wisdom, especially, right, David, is we're about to get into the holiday season, the meat of the holiday season. So some of you might be thinking you're going to put off or put to the side some of your thinking and planning for 2019, and you'll get back at it on January 2nd or January 3rd. But we can be thinking about this all the time. So if you are thinking of new opportunities in 2019 in your career, your job, or your business, this will help you out. Thanks for taking a few minutes with me today.
My pleasure.
So what's one thing that you use? What's a, let's start off like a mindset. When you're going into an interview with somebody, or if you were coaching, and I know you've done this, David's coached people on job interviews, what do you share with somebody who's going for that interview? Let's say they're past the screening part, the HR screening, they're actually going to sit down with a hiring manager. What would one of the first things you would share or convey to them be?
You know, the first thing that I always tell people is, first of all, the end result is that you want to stand out and be considered not having delivered any experience at all that's like any of the other candidates. Because once that happens, it all comes down to just who do they like better through a sense of personal connection, and you know, you have a really hard time of being that one that's selected. Being meaningful with your answers is really different. It's really, really important to stand out. So what I mean by that is, think about what the manager does on a daily basis as their primary concerns and objectives, and speak to some body of work that you've done in the past as specific examples that show how you have delivered and done the type of exact work they're looking for on a day-in, day-out basis. So it proves to them right away that you understand what their needs are, you understand what they have to do, and you're already aligned before you're even hired.
So just so I'm clear, and for those of you out there, again, like this is a mindset and approach as you go in for a job interview or even a big meeting, and we'll break some of those down too. Is are you saying that a candidate should have some of this already in their head prior to the interview or meeting, or they're discerning it as they sit down and talk to somebody?
I think you should do it prior to, because it makes the conversation so much easier to stand out when you do prep and planning beforehand.
Okay.
So a great example would be, if you are a really good communicator, you're comfortable as a public speaker or speaking in front of people in a meeting, that's not what you want to say. It's a very common answer, a very common comment. What you want to be able to say, for example, is, I deal with many diverse sets of people with different communication styles, different priorities in a meeting. I've worked well to manage that to success and help bring them together as a team to achieve the result for the meeting. That's much more specific to what a manager wants than to just say you're skilled at dealing with different people.
Why do you think so many people, I mean, maybe it's just the way we're conditioned over time, you know, the traditional path, struggle with. So we're good at listening, this is what I've done, this is what skills I have. How come people struggle with the ability? You just gave a great example. No, this is how I'm going to help your specific situation. How do you think? What's one of the maybe this will help people, what's one of the blocks or hang-ups that prevent people from saying, I'm not just going to list, these are all the things I've done, I'm actually going to tell you, the job or hiring manager, this is exactly how I'm going to help you. Why do people struggle with that so much?
I think it's very simple. It's actually very easy, because people don't tend to understand that the art of conversation just by talking like I was describing, you are showing your value in the same way versus saying, I do this, I can do that, I've achieved X. Because what happens is from an emotional and visible connection with the manager that's hiring, what you're saying is you come first by using the words I and putting yourself as statements. But when you're actually describing things to their benefit, you've made them the central focal point of the beneficiary of your work, and you're also signaling that you understand that you're having a conversation, and that you're concerned about their well-being, their success, and you want to be a part of it. It's very intuitively distributed that way. People pick up on it very quickly, and all of a sudden you stand out because that's not what it's typically necessary.
So really, at its core, the theme here is what can I? This is what I can do for you. I'm making it about you, and this is how you deliver that message, that tone, or give that feeling to the person on the other side of the table.
Right, and through that natural conversation of delivering it that way, you're still talking about your value, you're still talking about the things that you've accomplished. You're doing it in a different way that just connects and stands out from everybody else who's talking the way we were just saying not to.
So what? Let's throw this into the mix then. What if you sit down with somebody and you're not feeling like they're appreciating, they're not a particularly open person themselves, and they're not giving you much feedback, not even verbal, but just nonverbal cues like it's really resonating. What happens if you're 10, 15 minutes into a meeting and that person on the other side is just not moved by what you're saying?
You know, it's again, I hate to use the word easy, but it's easy once you're comfortable. And the mindset is the most appreciated comment you can make in those situations is instead of constantly answering to try to evoke an emotion, evoke verbal, some type of verbal response, or the head nod because you're trying to just say, I'll talk in different ways to try to get them to acknowledge so I feel better as the interviewee. Instead, stop and just say, I'm gonna stop for a second. Did I answer your question? Did you actually mean it in a different way? I want to make sure that if I need to go in a different way to answer the question, I can do that. But I just want to check in with you first.
I like that.
So what you do is you ask them. You don't just say, "Did I answer your question?" That's too much of a frontal assault. You say, I may or may not have hit directly on what you were asking. If you want to rephrase the question, I don't mind answering it differently. I just want to make sure I'm connecting with you. It's important to say, I'm connecting with you. You're now sending a signal that I'm easy to manage. If I were hired, I want to connect with you on an ongoing basis as employee manager.
Awesome stuff. I like that. One last angle to this before we port over just for a minute to regular business meetings, so to speak. So you said earlier when you and I were talking, let's not go in the direction of, my growth, my salary, what opportunities will I have within 6 months or a year. Share with the audience, number one, why you said that, and I know you've kind of you've already shared some of what the tactic and approach is, but not only why we shouldn't do that, but then what should somebody spend more time talking about as opposed to, all right, so what kind of career path am I going to have here? What kind of opportunities in 6 months or 12 months? That's not a good approach to take, right? And certainly not in a first interview.
Absolutely. So here's what I explained it earlier before with you today. This is an absolute game changer. I've seen nothing but positive results so far for people I've coached, and that is if you were to ask the question or have a dialogue towards the end of the interview where you're saying, one of the things I just want to make sure is that from a cultural fit and from an alignment of philosophy, I'm in sync with you because I don't want you to get an impression where it may not be a good fit. I'd like you to know that I would self-select out so that I don't put you in that position of having an interview, of doing a hiring that doesn't work. I think it's important that I am actually as careful as you are so that it's a good fit. So do you mind if I just ask you a question too about the culture of the firm and you talk from that perspective? What happens is they're now thinking, geez, this person is concerned about making sure it's a good fit. They'll self-select out. Again, they're looking after my well-being to make this successful. And it's a really good signal of getting the cultural questions asked so you know whether or not it's an environment you can work in.
So I think that is just amazing advice. Good Lord, do you see this happening? Do you see somebody literally saying, like the way did you say select yourself out?
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot, but in 2 roles, I probably did 30 interviews and hired about 6 to 8 people. Never had that come up in an interview that I did. So how are we going to get people to that place where they're going to actually select themselves out of a job if they're not seeing it in the interview?
You don't self-select out in the middle of the meeting. You want to use the time to reflect as your follow-up. So it's all about the follow-up, thank you, email, etc. You never say thank you, I look forward to hearing from thank you, the next step. What you always do is you send an email to summarize in 3 bullet points, not 5, not 7. Summarize in 3 bullet points. It's your thank you. This is what my understanding is most important to you. This is what my understanding is of the culture of the organization is. So you're validating and playing back an email, and you list 3 or 4 bullet points to that. And what happens is, since that's the validation, you know right away whether that works for you or not. So you want to then talk to HR if they come back to you and self-select out. But the intent of the email is you're reinforcing why you stand out, because you're playing back to them what nobody does. Everyone says thank you. You're saying this is what's important to you, this is the culture, and this is why I'm a great fit that way, without saying I'm a great fit. They're like, he or she gets it. They just understand me. This is like kismet. I'm going to hire this person, and you just stand out.
Some great tips right there for you. You know, we're going to table. We'll come back at a future time to talk more about other types of meetings. I thought you provided really good insight here, so I want to quit while we're ahead.
Okay.
And listen, if you're going on an interview, re-watch this video. You can take some of David's wisdom. I think it's all not only practical, but it's what's going to differentiate. This is the key. It differentiates you from so many other candidates. Anything else, any parting wisdom you want to leave, or anything else?
No, just have a great Thanksgiving, have a great holiday season.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll see you all again soon. Thanks for tuning in.